Isn't what she said, the warnings, the insights that she's giving you better than Glenn Kelman? Welcome back to Real Estate Mindset. Today's going to be an absolutely bonkers video. We're going to talk about what Glenn Kelman has recently said, the CEO of Redfin, and how this whole lag effects is playing out in the real estate market. As you guys may know, we already have a type of recession in the real estate market because sales and transactions are back to the 1990s. Same with purchase applications for financing. So there's a lot going on, and I figured I would take you guys to one of the offices I work out of. And right now, you guys, I'm trying to be really quiet because I'm in a library. But anyways, this is where I work. I hope you guys like it. And if you can, okay, for going out of the studio, going in the field, like the video, and that's all I will say. And I hope you guys enjoy. Now, as always, the data will be linked in my description if you guys want to come back and read this article for yourself when I'm not shouting at you. So if you want some peace and quiet, link in the description. Now, we're going to review a Fortune article. The name of this article is "The Economy Might Be Booming, but Housing is in a Recession. Top real estate CEO says he's never seen anything like this in the last 20 years. And that would be accurate, you guys, because again, sales and transactions are worse right now than during the GFC. And if you're wondering why are prices going up then, well, first of all, it depends on the market. Let's be honest, if you want to know if you're getting a good deal, you got to go hyper-local subdivision analysis. But the point that I'm trying to make is most of the appreciation in median sales price that you guys are seeing on a macro level is partially the result of more million-dollar houses selling. In fact, if you look at the price tiers for what's selling right now, anything over about 800,000, it depends on the market though, but about anything over 800,000, we see a growth year over year. So obviously that's going to have an impact on the macro median sales price data. Now, before I begin, take a look at behind me. Is this office not like super cool? Not sure what to do with that, but I do like working here. Now, I'm going to start by reading a little bit of this article, guys. Now, the article starts, Glenn Kelman is the chief executive of Redfin, a self-described technology-powered real estate company, a modern way to buy and sell homes. He's been at the helm for almost 20 years or 2 decades and doesn't seem to have lost his zeal. Not during the GFC, not now. He calls himself the luckiest person in the world, except recently because we've seen what their stock is doing, which is it's in the gutter. This article goes on. It can't be easy. Redfin stock reached a high more than $95 per share, but this was during the pandemic and its corresponding housing boom. But it's trended downward ever since, landing at around only $5.50. It's been a rough ride. And think about that. So from $95 to $5.50, I could tell you if you're a shareholder and you purchased at $95 and it's now $5, you feel like you've lost all of your money by investing in Redfin. I mean, it is what it is, guys. This article goes on. It's been a rough ride. Revenue dropped last year and agents were cut. It goes beyond Redfin. All of the housing world suffered as the Federal Reserve raised interest rates. But I'll argue, guys, the reason why the housing market's suffering is because the run-up, overwhelming, unsustainable run-up in both price and unaffordability. Losing 40% of our agents is a tragedy. I feel personally responsible for it. I was the one who signed their offer letters in spirit, if not in fact, and I failed to grow the business to the extent that we could keep them all busy. It's just hard when the number of homes sold in the United States drops from 6 million to 4 million. So in other words, guys, understand that before the slowdown, we were at about 6 million, and before the lockdown, in the 5. So it going from 5 to 6 million sold transactions to 4 million sold transactions, and 2024 may be worse because of the interest rates, it's killing people. People don't have 30 to 40% of profit like they can take a loss on. So business being down about 40%, you guys, it's killing people. And that's a fact. The company that I worked for, AMCAP Mortgage, and I was there, AMCAP Home Loans, I can never keep up, but I was working for AMCAP Home Loans for over 10 years. And you guys, they are no longer in business. Companies can't handle this for much longer. Scene number 3, I hope you guys can appreciate how important it is to me to give you guys quality content. I cannot stand being locked down in my studio, you guys. So here's another scene, but I'm going to go back into the article. Here's where we left off. Last year, existing home sales fell to their lowest point in almost 30 years. Again, you guys, in almost 30 years, meaning sales right now are lower than the GFC. They're lower than the Great Financial Crisis. This goes on. The housing market froze, and it's only just begun to thaw. But has it? I mean, why are they saying that? I mean, sales are worse. So how is it Glenn, how's it thawed? Sales are worse. How's it thawed? Anyways, let's keep going. Mortgage rates were the highest they've been in more than 20 years, and they've come down since, but are still high compared to what they were during the pandemic. In the past week or so, mortgage rates surged again because of the inflation and the overwhelming runaway inflation, you guys. They will not cut rates unless they need to stimulate the economy. And I know people in real estate are like, yeah, we need stimulation here, but the prices haven't corrected yet. So you guys got to be patient. This goes on. Reaching their highest level in months, 7.5% home prices are high. The cost of buying a home has gone up again, and prices haven't gone down, not enough anyways. So the Fed keeps trying to tame inflation with rate increases, but at least one sector is untamable, and that is housing. And I'll tell you guys, housing market right now has been incredibly resilient from a price decline standpoint. Okay, so again, from a price decline standpoint. And honestly, think about how bad that is. That means that everything that's going on that we see that we are upset about as Americans and consumers, everything, almost everything is built on the backs of homeowners and their houses. So if house value goes, if the housing market goes, it's fair to say that everything else will follow. It's anxiety induced, he said. Housing is a basic need, and would-be buyers who held out last year are tired of waiting. Millennials who delayed starting a family, putting off plans, can only wait for so long. So start your family renting, you guys. I feel like I'm a good husband. I feel like I'm a good father, and I rent. Just because you rent doesn't mean you can't be good at those things. Now, Kelman said he's never seen anything like this, calling it the worst situation for the housing market. Housing is in this recession, and the rest of the economy is booming. But again, deficit spending. If the economy was booming, then why would there be so much deficit spending? I mean, it's exceeding the GFC. And in years we're not even in recession. They're spending more money in deficit now out of recession than they did during recession in the GFC by a lot, you guys, a lot. This goes on. I was a CEO during the great financial crisis, he continued. Sales volume went down, but prices did too. One problem fixed another, Kelman said. Usually when sales decline, prices drop too, and then sales increase later. That's the cycle, he said. Houses become affordable again and sales pick up because of it. This situation is very different. And honestly, guys, I'm going to tell you right now, the big difference here is there's so much speculation. It's even worse than the GFC. And some people will argue that the primary reason for the GFC collapse was because of investor speculation and all of the investors liquidating their houses at basically the same time. It wasn't foreclosures. Some of this is just this artifact of 30-year mortgages, he said. Everything the Federal Reserve is doing has no real effect on homeowners. What? Apart from keeping them where they are. It actually has the perverse effect of keeping home prices high. And that's why I said, guys, and it just depends. We still need more data. But, there's a certain probability that if interest rates go down 200 to 300 basis points, that inventory will explode the market and all the home sellers that were on the sideline will come back to the market. If we have an inventory explosion, these prices are dead in the water. Person I've ever helped and represented under my name that knew me from YouTube. So huge deal. And I'm going to include in this video 3 questions that I'm going to ask them. So I'm going to do an interview, ask them why they didn't wait. Number 2, do realtors make too much money? And number 3, what red flags can they point out to consumers, being that they are purchasing at the end of April of 2024? So sit tight for that. Towards the end of this video, let's go back into the article. So he goes on, he doesn't know that mortgage rates will go up significantly through the end of this year. They could even come down depending on inflation. And I'll change that, guys, to depending on economic turmoil. Obviously, he thinks sales will improve and they've already been better than he's expected. That's because people need homes. It's not a fad to own a house. Actually, when you look at the definition of fear of missing out, it is actually a little bit of a fad when the prices run up like they have recently. So I wouldn't necessarily agree with him on that one. And also what's interesting is, and I'll show you at the end of this, guys, is actually sales are actually down, not up. So, sounds a little flip-floppy, but this continues. And there's a deep-seated human need to own a home where you're going to raise your family. I hate how people always put it back like, if you want to be a good father or husband, you got to own a house. That's far Far from the truth, I could tell you guys that. Still, the problem goes beyond the latest spell of unaffordability and has more to do with building homes. For the longest time, housing was getting very expensive, but money was getting cheaper, Kilman said. And a product of the pandemic made it so people could move anywhere they want to, i.e. remote work. Californians became Texans and Floridans, but all the buffers are gone. The people who were going to move already have, and money isn't cheap anymore. The only way to solve the problem is by building homes. All right, just about packed up. You guys are gonna love these people. For me, closing today is bittersweet because I'm gonna miss them. These are some extremely good people, very well qualified, very fair, and very strong at knowing what they wanted. So, you know, bittersweet. I'm gonna pack it up right now, you guys. But let me read a little bit more of this article. Before I do that, guys, let me go back to what Glenn Kilman was saying. Let me throw up the mortgage application demand. So as you can see here, the composite index is basically, you know, in the gutter. If you look at how low it is, it's literally, it's almost unimaginable. When it comes to mortgages, it's worse than the GFC. We have to go back all the way to 1995 to have comparable years of such low demand. And then when we throw up the other one, guys, which is existing home sales, you can also see here, again, in comparison, the lows of the GFC, and before that, 1995. So it's an absolute dumpster fire in the housing market. Very, you know, just typical foolish optimism. Oh, better than expected, blah, 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 blah. But again, we're at 1990 levels. Things are absolutely horrible. Back into the article. The basis of the American dream was that there was more land here than was in Europe, he said. So it's going back to Europe. Okay, Glenn, nice to see you're living in present times. Am I right, guys? And for the longest time, the government was very aggressive, working with builders to create more housing, but eventually that changed. With that, Gilman called well-meaning laws to protect the environment and give people more control over what kind of housing was built in their neighborhoods. That backfired and it became much harder to build anything. But I mean, in Texas, I see it everywhere. I know Texas is a lot looser. The left, as well as the right, have really struggled to solve the affordability crisis. And again, don't forget this, guys. As they continue to mess things up even more until we have a collapse, don't forget part of the equation to affordable housing is you. Okay, not everyone, but there's certain levels to this, but you, right? Rebudgeting, are you rebudgeting? Have you fixed your credit? Is your purchasing power strong? All right, so when it comes to zoning restrictions, I believe, he's saying California is probably ground zero. For years, its housing crisis worsened because of policy failures and unfettered local control. Initiatives were drawn up to change local regulations surrounding land use, and they failed time and time again. But finally, they didn't, Kilman said. It's an encouraging sign, and finally people are talking about housing at all levels of government because something needs to be done. Biden's basic problem with millennials is how optimistic can he be about the economy from your parents' basement, Kilman said. So if you're in your parents' basement, you know, depending on how you're living in their basement, that could be a good thing. I mean, Jeff M., someone in our community lived, I don't know if it was in his parents' basement or his grandparents' basement, but he lived and he saved money. And then before he was 30, he paid all cash for a house. So it is about the person as well. Okay, guys, we just got here. I'm super excited to ask these questions. Really want you to pay attention to what they're saying. Again, my market's way different here in Texas. We have a whole bunch of overbuilding. They're so well qualified and so, you know, realistic with their expectations. So I hope that shines in this interview. Now, I wanted to finish the article out. And here's the thing, you guys. I don't agree with a lot of what this is saying, but let's read a little bit of this. If we were completely undressed in public, we would have nothing to fear. Okay. Apart from the deteriorating affordability, there's another thing that's rocked the housing market. The National Association's $418 million settlement. But I'm going to tell you guys right now, I don't think that's going to do a lot for prices. If anything, it's going to hurt buyers even more. But there are a few things in here that I think, you know, Kelman makes a good point. And this is what he says that I like. He's basically saying Redfin would be more successful if consumers were more value driven. So maybe moving forward they will, but this is, you know, this is what he says. I think we could have grown more if consumers were more value driven. No, I'm sorry. If consumers were, not even more. He's saying were which means most of them were not. The more clearly buyers understand the value of what we offer, the more sales will get. Well, what value do you offer? You're basically telling people if they rent right now, they're going to rent forever, or they're going to be living in their mom's basement. I mean, it's super belittling. Geez Louise, right? But now let me read this last paragraph as well. I think this is a good summary. Even so, Kelman said he doesn't know that the housing market will be affected following the settlement. If anything, the change in commission seems to benefit sellers. Exactly. It won't make housing more affordable. He's not endorsing the settlement by any means because, for one, it still needs to be approved. Exactly. And there's no way to know for sure how everything will shake out. Of course, Redfin is facing its own commission lawsuits. Let's not forget that. He wouldn't comment on whether he's all worried. Instead, he said the company was in a good position and that its sole existence for 18 years has been to give people a better deal. And guys, that's exactly what they're going to need to do if they're going to make it through this housing market. Consumers need help from agents to drive the prices of houses down. So what little transactions are left, I beg you, if you're a realtor, do not fall in and let your clients fall into the premise of fear and missing out. You'll see with these clients, but I will walk away, easily walk away from someone if I feel like they're purchasing real estate based on emotion and not fundamentals and not doing things like subdivision review. I'm sitting here with Jasmine right before closing on her brand new house. Jasmine is the very first client that I've ever personally represented that watches me on YouTube. And first, Jasmine, are you excited about closing on your house today?
Yes, we are very excited. We have been waiting for this moment for a long time.
Okay. So, Jasmine has agreed to allow me to interview her, but before I do, I want to explain to people, the viewers are probably like, oh my gosh, if I'm purchasing in Houston, will Travis represent me? I want you guys to assume as viewers right now that I will not, that I am not going to represent you. We're out here driving prices down on houses. So I want to set this up first. Understand that she's a well-qualified buyer. Number one, she already has great spending habits and has maintained great spending habits. Number two, her and her family are not going broke purchasing a house, and they have the proper expectations. So understand that, y'all. My first question, Jasmine, is obviously, you've watched me on YouTube. You know I've been a little bit concerned, shown some recessionary indicators, potential unemployment. Why did you guys decide, and granted we're in Houston, guys, so this is not Maryland, okay, this is Houston. Why did you guys decide to purchase now and not continue to wait?
Well, we actually moved out of the country back in 2013, and then we came back to the States back in 2017. So we have actually been waiting since 2017. We've been wanting to buy when we came back, but when we sold in 2013 and when we buy in 2017, the price is almost doubled. So we've been waiting and waiting and waiting until we're like, you know what, we've been waiting for a long time. We're in a good financial position and we need to just feels like it's the right timing for us to purchase at this point.
Okay. And even though that she said that, I still tried to convince them to rent. You know that. You still decided. They wanted to move on with their life. Now, the next thing, Jasmine, I told the viewers, we're out there trying to, push prices down. I waived, first of all, I'm going to tell the viewers, the commission on this was $18,000. We were able to waive $6,000 of that commission and have the new home builder match that, actually exceed the $6,000. So we got them another $15,000 off. Bringing me to my next thing, okay? Do realtors, and first of all, guys, despite what she says, I'm going to say, heck yeah, they make too much money. So despite what she says right now, she's going to be a little merciful. But are realtors making too much money? Keeping in mind the commission was supposed to be $18,000.
Well, for me, coming from the buyer's perspective, right? Of course, we want to pay as little as possible, and as little that we can get away. But I have to kind of keep that in mind that realtor, that's their profession, right? So it's really not I felt like it's not up to me to say whether they make too much or not, because if that's their full-time job, they have to make a living. And the example is back in 2019, 2020, we've been looking and the realtor at that time have been showing us a lot of homes, but we didn't end up buying during that time frame. So, and then we have to push aside, wait for a few more years. And so that realtor spent a bunch of time with us, but not ended up getting anything from us, right? So we kind of have to keep that in mind as well, that, they have to feed their family. Like, they need to make a living. They also need to pay bills. There's a lot of factor that goes in, but now that I'm also thinking, maybe for the higher price point homes, maybe there could be a cap as far as, like if people are selling $1 million home, right? So, the commission, it's quite a bit, and some of it might be able to go back to the seller or whatever it is to even out the cost a bit.
So maybe a $10,000 cap. I personally, I think that's fair. $10,000 is a lot of money. Would you agree?
I would say maybe 10 to 15, so if, they close, I mean, it really depends on the realtor, right? Because for you've been amazing, because not only have you been our realtor, but you also, with your loan officer background, you kind of help us with the loan process as well. You've been educating me. You've been telling us what to watch out for. You were teaching us, the process, what to ask and stuff like that. So for you actually did 2 jobs for the price of 1.
I still disagree. I still think I made too much money, you guys. And I tell them all the time, I made too much money. Even on this trend, even though we waived $6,000, I still think it was too much. I mean, I was depressed for 48 hours. She'll tell you I didn't talk to him for 48 hours after the contract was executed, because I'm going to miss you guys, because we walked away, man. We walked away. We're out there being mean, and I'm going to miss that. Moving on to the last question, Jasmine. Now, obviously, price was a huge thing for us. Part of the things that I was trying to do to help you was help you and your husband, Ty, learn how to analyze a subdivision, review comps, hoping that she would eventually become a realtor and then, be one of the good guys, right? Or gals. So one of the big things for me as your agent was, again, comps, doing subdivision analysis. But my question is can you tell the viewers maybe some red flags that you noticed as a consumer going through this process? And I want you guys to understand, this is the end of April of 2024. She is an active buyer. I tried as best I could to guard her and her family, from the process. But again, every process is different. What can you tell the viewers as far as what you learned about this current process?
I was thinking that, there are quite a few points that I think we should pay attention to. One is finding a good realtor, a good-hearted realtor like Travis. He is very kind. He's very patient. He is not commission focused. So, the whole process, actually, before we get into contract of this home, we were actually in a contract with an older home. And towards the end, because one of the inspection came back and the buyer and the sellers, we couldn't agree upon on the repairs. So we have to walk away. And one of the first things that Travis said was, don't worry about me. We can continue to look. I'll be here for you. So there is no pressure. There was no pressure whatsoever from Travis. So that was amazing. So we were actually free to make our decisions, between my husband and I. And so we have to talk it out loud and, weighing the pros and cons before we actually decided to walk away. So finding a good realtor, it's really key. Right, so they don't pressure you into any major decisions. 2, I would say that for us, it's like figuring out what we want in a home, right? So for us, we actually, before I even officially started working with Travis, we actually started going out, driving around to different open houses, we actually picked 3 locations to look at that we are considering. So we were looking at a bunch of open houses, different locations, and then the more we look, the more clarity that we have. Not only the location, but also the lighting, the number of rooms, that we need for our family, maybe perhaps the school district, and then also the neighborhood and the pricing for sure, that we have to kind of get some clarity on in terms of what we can live with and what are some of the things that it's non-negotiable. So number 2 is knowing what you want. Number 3, is reading all the documents, right? So when every time we get into a contract, so far we got into 2 recently with Travis, we read every single page and every single word on the document so that we know what we're getting ourselves into. I remember when we first purchased our home, like, I don't know, like a decade and a half ago, back in 2008, I was so intimidated by all the paper, all the legal languages and stuff like that. And we have no idea what we're signing. And so that was a very intimidating process. And it's almost making me feel very disempowered because I have to rely on somebody to explain to me what they are, what I'm signing and stuff like that. But this time we were able to sit down and, spend an hour or 2, just read through all the documents together, my husband and I. And so one of the things that I remember is we come to a point on one of the page of the contract is talking about the hydrostatic testing. And we have no clue whatsoever what that is. And it kind of, my husband's kind of interested in, was like, what is that? He was asking. And so we started Googling that, and it was like, oh yeah, we wanted to do that kind of testing. And Travis didn't know, because I think we asked Travis, we asked different, I think even the seller's agent for our previous contract, and even our current builder's rep. Nobody knows what hydrostatic testing is, and everybody was just kind of scared by this terminology because they think it's a very dangerous testing. But the whole point I'm talking about this is because the reason, because we went into the hydrostatic testing on the older home, the 30-year-old home, we actually found there is a root intrusion in one of the pipes. And that is the reason we ended up backing out of the contract, because the seller didn't seem like they were willing to repair that, as well as the tree that the root is from the neighbor's tree. So that is a big red flag for me. And then that was one of the main reasons we got out of the contract, is because we ultimately don't have any control on the roots, because that tree is not even in our backyard. So to reiterate, I would say read the documents, every single page, every single word, just so that you are empowered and you know what you are signing.
Okay, and then if I can, tell them about, well, first of all, so we switched to new. If you guys are going to buy 1990 houses, hopefully it is really extra important not to go broke, because you're going to have a lot of stuff to repair. So one of the things that I wanted to tell them is when they decided to purchase new, we probably reviewed 40 pages of inspections, would you say? Probably like 40 pages of inspections. So what I learned too is, a lot of these builders, when offering new houses, have existing inspections that you can review. So we actually reviewed the framing, the foundation, so many inspection reports. But if you can, tell the viewers, what it felt like learning that even though we talked about this for like 45 days before we closed, because they're buying new, you guys, they did not escrow or collect enough property taxes, probably by, I would estimate, $8,000. Again, they're collecting $8,000 like less than, and also what that does is their payment now appears to be $700 roughly lower. So this time next year, their payment's going to go up roughly $700. They're going to owe $8,000 more in property taxes. That's not being covered by their escrow because they're buying new. How did that make you feel?
That's tough, because I know, Travis, you kind of wanted to push for the lender and the title company to make sure they escrow enough funds. I would say that it is very important, because I just heard a story from you that, saying that they owe, somebody bought a home recently, now they owe $6,000 in taxes. For us, I think because of your constant reminder, and then this is our second purchase of a property. So we know what we are getting ourselves into financially. And so we are okay, even though we try for them to escrow sufficient money for the taxes, but they ended up not, because they are based on the tax surge from last year, which is more or less a lot, just a dirt lot, right? So it wasn't valued as much compared to now. But we are mentally prepared to set aside money to fund the property tax, I would say at the end of the year or early next year, somewhere around there. So we are okay. We are financially prepared. We are mentally prepared. And we are not going to get caught off guard and not knowing what to do.
Okay. Awesome. You guys, one more time, shoot them a congratulations. They know what they're doing. They have, again, the right expectations. I really appreciate your time. We're going to head to closing right now. And other than that, guys,
I do want to say a few things.
Yeah.
I think also finding the appropriate inspector, the reputable inspectors, right? For old homes, new homes, I think it's equally important. We did a home inspection. We did a mold inspection. We also did a termite inspection for the older home. We didn't do the termite for this new home because I don't think, that was an issue. We also did the hydrostatic testing. So we did all of the 3 out of the 4 even for the new homes. And I think one of the things is when you're doing the inspection, we talked about this, Travis, before, that we spent about $2,000 on the previous home that we really wanted to purchase, but ended up we have to walk away. So it was not the easiest thing to walk away, but then again, I think ultimately it was a good decision to walk away, because otherwise we wouldn't have landed this new home actually everybody is happy about. So finding good, reputable inspectors that's not associated with the seller, all the agents, I think it's very important. They have to be like really neutral and like they know what they're doing and give you the best analysis so that, as the buyer, you make your best decision whether to go forward or not.
Okay, guys. Well, we're going to head to closing now. And seriously, comment below. Isn't what she said, the warnings, the insights that she's giving you, better than Glenn Kelman? Isn't it better? I mean, seriously, the wisdom, the insights. This is going on, boots on the ground right now. Stop listening to Glenn Kelman. You have no idea what I'm talking about. I made an entire video before this one. But, it's been an honor. When we close Homestead, okay, property tax homestead, we want to do that right away. And other than that, guys, I'm going to get us out of here, okay? Anything else you want to say?
I would say get educated. Get educated. Travis has been really valuable in terms of even educating on the loan process, that which we have no clue, right? We just rely on the loan officers. We just rely on the sales rep, but there's a lot of the things that you should just not be afraid to ask. Empower yourself, because even what we found out is there's a lot of the inspection, like you mentioned, from the builder, that builder had to pass every stage of the constructions that we found out that nobody ever asked for. Like we were the first one. So it was really good that they were really patient to sit down with us to go through all 50 pages of the report, because it now gave us a lot of confidence in the home that we are purchasing, and that it's not going to fall apart in 10 years. So just keep asking, do your due diligence. I think that's what Travis liked about us, that we are always doing the due diligence, and don't be afraid. Just don't be afraid to ask, right? So I think that's what I wanted to say. Just get educated on the process too.
Golden, you guys. Again, way more important, in my opinion, than Glenn Kelman, CEO of Redfin. Other than that, guys, we're going to get out of here. If you're out there investing in real estate, speaking for Jasmine, we wish you luck, and we hope you win.
Good luck.